You keep telling yourself that you miss them, that something in your chest aches because of their absence, that the silence they left behind feels like a door half open in the middle of the night. But if you listen closely, if you breathe slowly enough, you begin to sense that the emptiness does not point toward them at all. It points toward you, toward the place where you abandoned yourself while trying to hold on to someone who never knew the weight you carried inside. There is a moment when you sit alone and feel the air soften around you, a moment when the mind wanders back to memories that glow like embers in a dark forest. You revisit them as if touching a mirror that once reflected a version of you that felt alive. You call it longing, yet something deeper stirs beneath the surface. Something ancient, something honest, a quiet truth rising like a slow dawn. You do not miss them. You miss the part of yourself that you offered so freely. You miss the warmth you once felt because it came from your own fire. You miss the softness of your own presence. You miss the self that dared to open its heart and trust the world. The loss you feel is not a wound caused by another. It is the echo of your own footsteps moving too far from the center of your being. Stay with that feeling. Notice the way it pulls you inward. Notice the way it hums like a distant river calling your name. Something in you is trying to return. Something in you is asking to be found again. And yet, beneath it all, a quieter question waits in the shadows, asking gently if you are ready to face the person you left behind. You have walked through so many inner nights without realizing that each shadow was carved by your own absence. You look for them in the memories, in the silence, in the empty spaces of your days, yet every search leads you back to the same quiet room within yourself. This is where the longing truly lives, not in their face or their voice, but in the part of you that you once silenced so you could remain close to them. You mistook that sacrifice for love. You mistook that shrinking of your spirit for devotion. When you remember them, the image feels soft, almost luminous, like a candle flickering in an old temple. But look closer. The glow comes from you. You were the one who created the warmth. You were the one who breathed life into the connection. Their presence was only the surface. What you truly miss is the way you felt in their orbit, a feeling born from your own depths, not from their touch. There is a place inside you where the forgotten selves gather. The child who once trusted easily. The dreamer who believed in impossible futures. The lover who opened the heart without fear. When someone leaves, it is these inner figures who fall silent. You hear the quiet and mistake it for missing them, but what you are sensing is the shift within your own psyche, the subtle trembling of the soul searching for the pieces that were scattered when you tried to belong to someone else. The longing becomes a mirror. It reflects the distance between who you were and who you became while trying to keep their world intact. The ache you feel is the psyche calling you back, inviting you to walk through the forest of your own memories and reclaim what was abandoned. The path is dim, yet something in you knows the way. Something ancient, something wise, something that rises like a slow flame in the dark, reminding you that every loss is a return to the self. You feel the longing first in the body, a heaviness behind the ribs, a faint tightening in the throat, a pull that seems to drift like mist through your chest. It comes at quiet hours when the world softens and the mind grows tender. You sit with it, unsure if it is grief or memory or some strange mixture of both. It feels like standing at the edge of a forest at dusk, sensing a presence you cannot name. And as you breathe, you realize the ache is not pointing outward. It is spiraling inward, circling a place you have not touched in a long time. Inside this ache lives the truth you avoided. The psyche remembers what you tried to forget. It remembers the moment you dimmed your own light so someone else could shine. It remembers the silence you swallowed to keep the peace. It remembers the way you stepped out of your own center to keep their world steady. This is the sorrow that lingers, not because of them, but because of how far you walked from yourself to remain close to them. The longing becomes a symbol, a quiet signal from the unconscious reminding you of the bond you broke with your own soul. The image rises like a dream. You see a small fire burning in a clearing, the flames pale yet steady. You move closer and realize it is your fire, the one you abandoned while tending to someone else's cold hearth. The warmth feels familiar, almost sacred. You reach out and it flickers as if recognizing your touch. This fire is the part of you that never stopped waiting. It is the forgotten self calling you back, glowing patiently through the shadows you created. And when you stand before that fire, a simple truth unfolds. You do not ache because they are gone. You ache because you left your own light unattended. And now something in you is ready to return to its warmth. There are moments when the longing grows louder, almost like a tide rising against the edges of your mind. You feel it when you wake too early, before the world has arranged its shape, when the air still carries the softness of dreams. In that fragile space, their memory appears like a faint silhouette reflected on still water. It feels gentle, almost tender, and yet something in it unsettles you. You sense that the reflection is not theirs. It is your own face blurred by the ripples of time, waiting to be seen again. The psyche holds its secrets through symbols. What you call missing them is the soul pointing toward a deeper fracture, a place where you once chose someone else's comfort over your own truth. You shaped yourself to fit their shadow, and forgot the outline of your own being. This creates a silent dissonance that lingers long after they are gone. It is the echo of a self that was never allowed to speak. You stand now at the threshold of that echo, feeling the strange mixture of fear and familiarity that comes when an inner figure steps out of the dark and asks to be remembered. A vision forms slowly, as if rising from ancient water. You see a door carved from stone, half open, its surface lit by a thin beam of dawn. The light slips through like a quiet invitation. Behind the door lies a room filled with versions of you left behind through the years, each holding a small object that once belonged to your innocence. They look at you without judgment. They look at you with recognition. You realize the door was never locked. You were simply afraid to enter a space where you would have to see yourself without the distortions created by longing. And as you stand in that doorway, something within you shifts. The ache softens, not because the loss is healed, but because you finally understand what it pointed to. You were never searching for them. You were searching for the parts of you waiting behind that quiet door, ready to return to your life the moment you chose to walk through. There comes a point when the longing no longer feels like pain. It feels like a faint whisper moving through the quiet corridors of your inner world. You hear it while walking alone, or while sitting in a room that seems too still for your thoughts. It is not their voice. It is yours, a voice you silenced when you traded your authenticity for the illusion of being needed. You thought you were losing them, but the one who drifted away was you. This realization arrives slowly, like a lantern glowing in the fog, illuminating the path you walked without noticing how far it led from your own center. The psyche reveals its truths in gentle waves. What once felt like heartbreak becomes a subtle awakening, the moment you recognize that the connection you mourned was built from your own energy. You were the source of the warmth, the depth, the meaning. You mistook your reflection for theirs. This is why the absence hurts. Not because they carried something irreplaceable, but because they left you with the silence of your own abandoned inner world. The unconscious speaks through this silence. It tells you that the self you lost is ready to rise again. A new image forms, one that feels almost sacred. You find yourself standing at the edge of a river that glows under the moonlight. The water is calm, yet full of quiet power, moving with a steady rhythm that echoes the pulse beneath your ribs. As you kneel and look into the surface, you see not the person you once loved, but a figure emerging from the depths. It is you, the version that remained untouched by longing, the one who kept the flame alive even when you forgot it existed. The reflection reaches back as if asking you to step into the river and reclaim what was never truly lost. And when you finally touch that water, a truth unfolds with disarming clarity. You were never haunted by their departure. You were haunted by the distance you created from yourself. And now the river calls you home, reminding you that every sorrow is a map leading back to the center of your being, where your soul waits with patient, unwavering light. You begin to feel the pieces slowly drawing together, as if the forest within you is finally opening to the first light after a long night. The longing that once felt heavy now softens into something almost tender, a quiet rhythm that reminds you of your own heartbeat. You sense the echo of every moment you abandoned yourself in the name of closeness, every step you took away from your own fire, every shadow you chased trying to find warmth in someone else's hands. These memories no longer sting. They breathe. They settle. They make space for something new to emerge. The path you walked through grief becomes a bridge back to yourself. You feel the presence of your forgotten selves gathering around you like old companions. The child who trusted easily. The lover who felt deeply. The dreamer who carried entire worlds within his chest. They rise like small flames in the dark, illuminating the inner temple you once deserted. You stand at the center of this place, watching the shadows dissolve, watching the river flow with quiet certainty, watching the door within you open without fear. This is the moment the unconscious becomes a guide rather than a wound. There is no sudden revelation, only a gentle expansion, like dawn unfolding across a silent horizon. You realize that the ache was never about them. It was the soul calling itself back into the body, calling you to remember the warmth you once gave away, calling you to breathe into the spaces where you once grew small. The longing becomes clarity. The grief becomes light. You stand in the quiet and feel yourself returning, slowly, steadily, like a flame reclaiming its place in the night. And in that return, you understand that nothing was ever taken from you. You had only forgotten where you kept the key to your own heart. You sit now in the gentle aftermath of your own return, feeling the quiet settle through your chest like soft rain. The longing that once pulled you outward has turned inward, guiding you back to the place where your soul waited with patient devotion. You realize that you were never truly broken. You were only distant from yourself, only wandering through shadows that taught you how deeply you needed your own presence. The silence no longer frightens you. It feels like a room where you can finally breathe. As you move through the next days, you will feel echoes of the old ache. They will rise like faint ripples on a calm river. Do not turn away. Let them remind you of the path home. Let them show you the places where your heart still calls for attention, where your forgotten selves still wait to be held. Notice how the mirrors of the world reflect you now with more softness, more clarity, more truth. You are learning to stand inside your own light again. You are learning to stay close to yourself, no matter who enters or leaves your life. And as you continue to breathe, you sense a peace gathering around you like a warm dusk settling across an open field. The journey inward becomes a quiet communion, a meeting between who you were and who you are becoming. You no longer search outside for what was always carried within. You feel the steady presence of your own soul, calm and luminous, rising to meet you with every step. And in this tender convergence, a final truth unfolds. The self you thought you lost has been waiting in the stillness, whispering your name with unwavering love.